Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So it is time again for another wrap-up video, and I read quite a few books this month. I was on vacation all of last week, so I actually finished one book and read an entire book, and then read about half of another book. But yes, let's talk about those books I read this month. So the first book that I read this month was The Gracekeepers by Kirsty Logan, and I have watched a few review videos about this book, and I feel like I have an entirely different outlook on this book than a lot of people did, because for me, I felt like there wasn't a lot of substance. Like, it was a good book and it was entertaining and like it was interesting and it pulled me forward, and I wanted to know what was happening and, you know, how these two people's lives were going to intertwine, because this is a story of basically two girls. One is a circus performer. She performs with her bear on a ship, and she is a dampling, which means that she lives on the water. And then the other is Callanish, who is a gracekeeper, and she lives on the land, and so she's a landlocker. And the world is basically covered by water except for sparse areas of land, and so land has a premium. And it's interesting, and I felt like there was so much that could have been done with that world. Like, it sounded so fascinating, but I feel like we only really skimmed the surface of the world. Like, it was alluded to basically mer people at some point, but we never actually got any detail about that, and we never really saw anything that would sort of make that concrete. So it was kind of like a willowy story where it felt like it just touched on a lot of things, but it didn't really give depth to any one thing. And while I liked it and I thought the plot was interesting, I don't know that I would recommend it. The language was pretty, but yeah, overall it just wasn't my favorite read of the month. So the second book that I read this month was one that I have been meaning to read for some time now, and that is Armada by Ernest Cline. And this is Ernest Cline's second novel, and it is about a kid who plays this video game all the time, and then one day this alien ship shows up to around his school, and he finds out that the game that he's been playing is really a military training course or whatever. That's not a spoiler because that's in the dust jacket. Like, that's how the book is sort of summarized. Though I think that had you not known that, or had I not known that going in, I probably would have been, you know, the first few chapters would have been like, what's happening? And I would have been a lot more interesting. As it was, probably 3 chapters in, that chapter I was struggling because it was a lot of game specific. Like, it was describing this game in super detail, which helped us understand certain plot points later on and certain aspects of the plot later on, but at the time it was just so difficult to get through because I'm not a huge game person, or like the kind of games that they're talking about. But I overall really enjoyed this book. I feel like a lot of people have said that it has an Ender's Game-esque plot. It's very Ernest Cline in the writing style, so if you're not a fan of Ernest Cline's writing style, you probably won't enjoy this. I will say that if you liked Ready Player One, that doesn't mean you're automatically going to like it, because Ready Player One is, I felt like, sort of a lot more fast-paced, and it has like a variety of references from the 80s and movies and pop culture and TV and music, whereas this is mostly just sci-fi movies and sci-fi TV shows and games and arcade games. So I feel like you might need a little bit of a reference for this, but at the same time, I don't know a lot about those things and I really enjoyed it. So I think that you don't have to be a gamer to like this, but you liking Ready Player One is not an automatic you will like this. So this is a really roundabout way of saying that I enjoyed it, and I will be doing a more in-depth review coming up later this month and giving away the second signed copy I have of this, because this is my signed copy from when I met him in July, and I got another signed copy to give away on my channel, and I've had it and I've been meaning to give it away, but I just hadn't gotten around to reading this. So look for that later if you don't own this or you want a signed copy, because that will be happening later. Now, the third book that I finished this month was The Lure of the Moonflower by Lauren Willig, and this is the final book in the Pink Carnation series, and I can't tell you very much about the book because it's the 12th book in a series, but it was Jane's story, who, if you know anything about the Pink Carnation series, Jane is a very central character, and so it is her story and her love interest, and it was adorable. I felt like this was a little slower paced than some of her other books. Definitely slower paced than Mark of the Midnight Manzilla or the Mistletoe one. But it was still good. It just felt like it took a lot longer to get to the exciting part, or really the point. So where they were going. So it was it had a lot of like the journey, traveling along sort of aspects to it, but it was good, and I think that it was a strong ending to a really fantastic series. So the last book that I finished this month was Going Away Shoes by Jill McCorkle, and this is a book of short stories. I picked this up because I asked for recommendations for authors that graduated from my university, and this was one of the most highly recommended books and authors, so I picked it up and I'm really glad I did. These were really interesting stories. So it's, I think, like 10 short stories. I don't remember how many, but basically they're all about people in transition. So it's like people who are going through divorce, people who are trying to get out of a bad situation, people who, I don't know, it's like they're not always in the best of situations. Some of them are, but it's like, it's called Going Away Shoes because someone is basically leaving or exiting the world or things like that. And it was really fascinating. Jill McCorkle has a really easy style of writing to read, and I thought that some of the criticism I've seen about this book is that the stories sort of all seem like they could be written or voiced by the same person, so the narrator is very similar in all of them. And I would say that that's probably true, that a lot of them seem like they are narrated by the same person. And I think a couple of the stories even share places, like they talk about certain restaurants and it's mentioned in multiple stories, but they're not supposed to be related, like the stories aren't supposed to be related. So I thought that was kind of strange, but you know, you write what you know, I guess. My favorite story in here was called Driving to the Moon, and it was really cute. It was about somebody who had stayed in touch with this guy their whole life, who was kind of like a troublemaker and never really settled down. Was one of those like people who everything came to them with no effort whatsoever, and it was sort of the story of their friendship, which was really interesting. And fun to read about. So yeah, I definitely think if you like short stories, or if you like family dramas or like relationship books, that this is a good one. It's not a happy ending book, but it's definitely a interesting read. So I did pick up another book this month, and I read about half of it, so I was gonna go ahead and talk about it, and that is The Apothecary by author I cannot pronounce. This is, spoiler alert, from my Pals haul, and this is adorable. So it's a young adult series about this girl who moves to England in the 50s because her parents are basically thought to be communists, and so the US Marshals are after them, and so they leave the country, they go to London, and it's about her friendship with this son of an apothecary, and it's full of like whimsical magical elements, and it's got like a little bit of mystery, and it's really cute and interesting, and it has like these gorgeous illustrations at the beginning of chapters and like throughout the book. And I just am loving it. It's part of a series, and it's definitely young adult, but apparently this was the author's first young adult novel, and you can tell it's definitely got a voice of someone who leans more towards adult literature, so I have enjoyed that as well. So I am about, you know, 50-60% through this book, and I'll probably finish it in the next couple of days, so I wanted to go ahead and mention that one. So those are the books that I read this month. I was considering doing Vlogmas, but then I got kind of behind on videos, so I know that it's just not humanly possible for me to do 24 videos in the next 24 days. So I am going to just stick to my regular vlogging schedule, or whatever video uploading schedule. I may have bonus videos on Sundays sprinkled in there, just depending on how my week goes and how much time I have to film. If you have video ideas for me that you would like to see me do, then definitely leave those down below and I will look at those. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye!